Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you a video that's been requested for a very long time, which is how to make dub techno like basic channels. So as usual, you get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and all of that stuff in this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because all of that is actually already available. And yeah, let's get started. So this loop you heard in the intro, we're at 125 BPM. First sound we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So this is just like a pretty hard hitting, almost like a 909 style type of punchy kick like this. And yeah, you can see we just have the kick sample. I've got a bit of a pitch envelope on there, so the pitch envelope just adds like more of an impact at the start of the sound. I'll turn it off and turn it on. And yeah, so you can hear it just gives it more of like a at the start of the sound. After that, I have this drum buzz. You can see we just got this on the hard setting, and I got the drive up and the crunch up, and I also have the transients up. So this is really just making the kick like punch through that much harder. Here's without it, and then with it. So even though this is dub techno, which can be like a very chill kind of laid back style of music, you still want to make things as fat and as powerful as possible. You know, this is what's gonna make the difference, like playing a track in a mix or playing a track in the club, where if you don't do stuff like this, what'll happen is if you mix into your track from another track, it's going to sound too soft. It's just not going to fit in. It's going to sound like, it's going to be really jarring, and it's going to throw everything, the whole mood off. So this is why you need to do stuff like this and get your kicks up to that professional level. Next sound that we have here is the bass line, which sounds like this. This is a pretty simple bass line. Basically, it's just droning on D sharp, and then it just goes up to G sharp, and then F sharp, and then F. So, not really that complicated. The thing about dub techno is you kind of have a lot of options for what you can do with the bass. It just needs to be kind of like more in the back of the mix and more something that you're feeling. Like, if you listen to this overall track, you can hear and definitely feel the bass there. Underneath everything, guiding the chord progression, if that makes any sense, or guiding like kind of that really progressive feel that this has, rather than, you know, being right in your face, right up front. Super obvious. So that's why this works, and that's what you want to do when you're making dub techno bass lines. For the sound on this one, I made it using analog. What we have here is actually two square waves an octave apart, and I have them detuned a little bit. Those are going into a low pass filter. The filter has an envelope on it. You can hear that's what's giving it the pluck. And yeah, and then we have the amp envelope set like this. And then after that, I have a bit of chorus. This is just fattening the sound up a little. Here's without it. And with it. And yeah, pretty simple stuff. Just makes the bass sound a bit bigger. I also have this echo here. You can see I have this on 8th notes. And I'm kind of playing around with the filter to dial it in. And this just gives the sound a little bit more rhythm. This kind of helps with making it like a really droning kind of deep bass line that you just, like I said, like you just kind of feel in the background as opposed to like hearing it right in your face. So yeah, the key here is just with the filter, because obviously this is a bass. You don't want to have a bunch of repeats with all that low end. So I've just taken the high pass on the filter and dialed it up a bit, and then I've also got the low pass set like that. After that, we have a bit of drum bus. This is, just like I was saying with the kick, fattening the sound up. Here's without it. And then with it, you can hear, yeah, it just makes the bass line so much stronger. And the last thing I have on there is this EQ8, and this is just cutting at 100 hertz. I do this a lot in my videos, but it's just kind of cutting out a little bit of room for the kick, because the kick is usually hitting around 100 hertz. And so by cutting this in the bass, it makes room for the kick, while still leaving the bass kind of in that deeper sub-range. So then I have those in a group together, also known as a bus, and we got a few effects on there. Here's with no effects on it. And then with everything. So the first thing that we have on here is the EQ. You can see I have two EQs, and what these are really mostly doing is just like a low end boost or a low mid-range cut. Like you can see with this one, I have a low mid-range cut, and then this one I have a low mid-range cut around a very similar range. So like I said, it's just kind of cutting that out. You know, when you're using saturation to fatten sounds up, it tends to add a bit of that low mid-range and make things kind of messy sometimes. So it's just one of those things where, like, if you want to get the benefits of using drum bus and using saturation to fatten your sounds up, you just have to do this, especially when you're working with the kick and the bass, because yeah, it's just going to clean everything up so much more, and it just really doesn't work unless you do this. Otherwise, it's just going to get too muddy, too messy, and you're not really going to get a fat sound, you're just going to get a big sound. There's a difference between big and fat, or big and powerful. So yeah, so then on the second one, I also have a little bit of extra stuff. You can see I've got like a low end boost, just kind of makes the low end a bit stronger since this is the kick and the bass. Then I've got a mid-range boost, that kind of helps with the punch on the kick a little bit, just because like that tends to be where the punch is. And then I also have this high end boost, and that's really just for like the clickiness of the kick. So yeah, then the only other effect I have on there is drum bus. You can see we got this on the hard setting. I've got it, yeah, like this, and then we got the transients turned up a bit as well. So this is just really making everything hit harder. It's also helping to kind of glue the kick to the bass. Here's without it. And then with it, so you can hear, again, it just really helps to make this sound like one low end as opposed to a kick and a bass separately. So yeah, the next thing that we have here is the snare, which sounds like this. So what this is it's two layers, and then I have them grouped together. We have the snare, and then this clap. So yeah, this is something I noticed in basic channel strikes, especially their stuff from the 90s, is these snares like hitting on the 2 and 4 like this. That's really good for the style. It gives it that very like kind of dubby, almost like, I guess you could say like a 90s feel. Like it just has that really kind of analog sound to it, you know? It really sounds like you're using a drum machine. So yeah, so like I said, it's just these two separate ones. On the snare I have a bit of drum bus, and then I also have like these little notes here. Like that, just stuff like that the clap isn't playing, kind of helps to mix it up and make it a little bit more interesting. And then like I said, I have those in a group, and I'm processing them a bit as a group. So here's with no group processing. And then with it, so you can hear the difference that makes there. So the first thing we have is this reverb. I got the decay time down quite a bit. This is just like a short, just adding like a little bit of space to the sound. After that we have this drum bus. This is helping to glue the snare and the clap together. It also just kind of brings this more forward in the mix. Again, here's without it. It really makes them sound like one, and like I said, it just gives them that punch and that fatness to really contend with everything else in the mix. And then the last thing we have on there is this EQ8, and this I'm just using to cut out some low end. Pretty simple stuff there, and that is it for the snare. Next thing that we have here is this first chord stab, which sounds like this. So I'll show you the notes here. It's actually just this one chord. It's just playing this D sharp minor chord. And then what I've done is I've taken, so this is just a regular D sharp minor. Root note, third, fifth. I've taken the third and put that down an octave. And then I've taken the root note and doubled that up 2 octaves down. So it's just kind of like a little bit deeper. You know, it kind of gives it a bit more dimension and makes the chord sound a little bit different than just like a standard triad. And then the notes, the chords where it goes up like this, like that, those are just the same exact thing, just an octave up. So it's pretty simple. You mostly want to just stick with like minor chords for this, maybe like some minor 7ths I was playing around with, or even minor 9ths or something like that. But just sticking with the minor chords and just finding interesting ways to voice them tends to work really well with the style. So for the sound on this one, I made it using analog. What it is just one saw wave going into a bandpass filter. And then what's happening here is the bandpass has an envelope on it, so you can hear, that's what's making it like, wow. Kind of like that. And then what's happening here is you can see I have the automation on the filter there. So you can see I just have that slightly moving. With the bandpass, you don't want to go too crazy because, like you can hear even just with this, the movement, it's enough. Like just moving it a little. The bandpass has a very wide sweep, so you don't want to go too crazy. But if you dial it in like this, it works pretty well for just having something where it's really like evolving and changing. Like the key with this style is it's really repetitive, and if you just have the filter stay in the same place like this, it gets boring. It's just not that interesting. So this is how you make very repetitive and simple music like this interesting. So yeah, and then I have the amp envelope set like that, and then the only other thing I have there inside the synth is just a bit of vibrato, giving it, just a bit more kind of character and texture, and then I have this unison as well, which just fattens the sound up a little bit. After that, we have a bit of chorus, just kind of spreading it out a bit and giving it a bit more space, and then we have a bit of filter delay. The filter delay is really, really good for the style, actually, because really, it's mostly just because you can get 3 different delays and control them very independently of each other. But yeah, so that's what I have here. You can see I have this, like, this first one's pan all the way to the left, second one's in the center, and then the third one is pan all the way to the right. And these are all just doing different times. And so this is what's making the sound so interesting. Here's without it. It still works. The chord stab is still cool. And that would honestly work as well. But this, with it, having all those different delays happening, and because you're getting them at like different points in the filter sweep as well, just really brings the sound to life. It makes it a lot more interesting. This is like the stuff that not everybody can do, like just trying to, like, that you can do in your music. It's just like doing interesting stuff like this and trying to think outside of the box with delay and stuff like that. After that, we have a bit of reverb. This is just to give it a bit more space. There's without it. And then with it, I find this makes it sound a bit smoother, as opposed to like with just the delay, it's a little bit too harsh and a little bit too abrupt when it cuts out. And then the last thing we have on there is just a drum bus to fatten it up, and then I have an auto filter cutting out the lawn, and that is it for the first stab. The next sound that we have here is the second stab, which sounds like this. So this is just playing a D minor chord. Yeah, you can hear we just got D sharp minor, D sharp, F the 9th, and then F sharp the minor 3rd, and then A sharp the 5th. Pretty simple stuff. I'm not sure what's going on with that first chord. But yeah, you can hear this just plays on that 1 count there. Just kind of like a little stab to come in there. I like having this kind of mix it up because you have the very synthy one, and then the piano comes in. Again, when you're making music like this, it's all about just having like some stabs go over and over and over again over a repetitive drum loop. Doing stuff like this is the way that you keep it interesting. So for the sound on this one, actually this is just a sample. It's just this M1 piano sample. I'll play it for you. So it's a sample from an M1 piano, the famous house piano, and I've just brought it into a simpler here. I like sampling these. It gives it a very like old school kind of feel. We just put it in a sampler like that. Then I just have a few effects. I've got a bit of chorus, kind of spreading it out, giving it a bit more dimension. And then we have this filter delay. This is very similar to the one that was on the other stab. Again, filter delay, really good way to do interesting things with delays, and not just use them to give a bit of like kind of space to your sounds, but to make them more interesting and bring them to life as well. Then after that, I have some more delay. We got this echo here. So since the sound is so long and it just hits like one time, like that, I wanted to add a lot of reverb and delay. You can see we also have a pretty long reverb on top of this. It just, you can't do this with a sound like that other stab where it's just happening so quickly. You kind of need to keep it more focused. With a sound like this, you really want to go do as much with the reverb and delay as you can, because it's just going to make it that much more interesting. So that's the purpose of that echo there. Then, like I said, we got this reverb here. This is just giving it a bit of space. Here's without it. You can hear just the delay. It's not as nice sounding. The reverb makes it a bit smoother. Then we just have a bit of drum bus to fatten the sound up and an auto filter cutting out the low end. And that is it for the second stab. And then I have those in a group. Again, just like with everything else, the group processing really goes a long way. So with this one, we just have a bit of drum bus and a bit of EQ8. Here's with nothing. And then with the effects. So you can hear, and the transients on the drum bus there really help as well for just making like that stab really come out. Like if I turn those off, you don't hear the like individual hits as much as when I turn that up. And then I just have the EQ8 cutting out the low end. And that is it for the stabs. So then the last thing that we have here is this hi-hat and ride. I'm going to show these two together. because they basically are like the cymbals in this track. So the way I set this up is very 90s basic channel dub techno style. We have the ride just playing straight eighth notes. And you can see this, I have like a bit of chorus on it, kind of spreading it out, and we've got like a drum bus on there to fan it up, and then I have an auto filter cutting out the line, and then we have the hi-hat. Just adding in those extra sort of like accent notes in between, you know, it's just giving it something a little bit more interesting. If I turn that off, it's really adding to the groove. And then on that I just have a bit of drum bus. So like I said, these are really like the cymbals in this track. You want to keep it pretty simple, but you still want to make it interesting. It's about being subtle and still doing like big things with some subtleties. So that is me for this one, guys. Thank you very much for checking this video out. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets and all that stuff from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.